right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Doomcast number 62. I am your host, your ashamed host, Charlie McGrath, co-founder of Doomcast, Doomcast.com. I'm joined, of course, by my good friend, Doug Owen, founder of BlacklistedNews.com, and the guy I let down, him and Craig, last week, and you, the listening audience. It was a 61-week run of not missing a Doomcast. By me, anyway, because there was one in there where you couldn't make it, Doug. But this was the first gap we've had. And it sucks, and I want to apologize for it. I've had I'll get into that real quick just so we can get it down the road, out of the way. Bronchial issue, right? Going around the office because people come to work when they're sick, which freaking just drive. I can't even describe to you when someone's walking around the office and their face is all swollen up and they're sneezing and coughing and hacking all over the place. I literally want to beat them down.
And they're lying too when they tell you it's just their allergies. So just my allergies. Just that.
Absolutely. I got the answer once I got an answer from a coworker once. He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm on medication. I'm not contagious." And I found out the next day he went and got himself a Z-Pack, some antibiotics, and the medication that he was talking about was some, I don't know, ibuprofen or Tylenol. And I'm like, oh, it just drives me nuts because I guess for me, it's a bigger deal because I get a cold. I'm fine probably. I get a bad cold. Okay, I can stave off an asthma issue, but we had a series of people have this bronchial condition in the office, and you could tell these deep bellowing coughs, and you can tell they're just, for all they're worth, trying to scratch that itch in the back of their throat. And I'm like, oh shit, man, I know what this means. And I'm like, guys, just go home. We can live without you for a day or two. Go home.
See, if I was you, I would go home. I would go home. I can't be here. I'm out of here. I'm going to go home and just sleep.
I've really considered going to my boss and saying, look, I think that the best thing for the company, because I'm missing work.
For the people that don't know, just to bring you all up to speed, Charlie has bad asthma from Gulf War illness, funk syndrome that just came up in his late to mid 30s, and when he gets sick, he gets hospitalized. He's been in the hospital for how long? 3 days last week. Then you had to go back.
Yeah, and that wasn't the case. I was at the hospital several times because of the condition, and held and filled with steroids. And
so, were they worried that you had Ebola? Did they put on some crazy Spaceballs type?
They definitely ask you. They ask you.
Do you have Ebola, sir?
No, they say, have you traveled? And and they want to know if you've been. And I don't even know why they ask the question. Have you been to
because
West
they've
Africa?
Been briefed by the CDC.
Sure, but asking somebody if they've traveled, if they say yes, and it could be they just flew to California and back, or they flew to Dallas and back. If you're traveling, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think you could be exposed at any point because, as we know from this nurse, she's potentially infected 150 people and all the airports she visited. But long story short, it was
all the people she was licking and coughing on the way.
So, the long story short is I end up catching, to the best attempts of trying not to, end up getting this thing, and
Ebola.
I'm hoping.
Charlie McGrath has Ebola.
Yeah, I have Canadian Ebola. It's ever since I've came back from there. But it jumped into the bronchials, and it was really, 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 really ridiculously bad. And I don't want to scare anybody like Bonnie, my sister, who's going to be listening to this, and tell her it was life threatening. And I'm not hooked up to.
It was Doomcast threatening. Okay, it stopped the show from happening. Oh, this freaking thing! The live stream just stopped right as we get into it. Just as I'm looking at it. Hold on. I am going to create a new one. No, I'll keep it to myself. I gotta bug these people about it. Broadcast Doom DOOMCAST Tell people in the chat room to hold on. Live radio. I don't know. This thing works for 2 hours. I'm running music, high audio codecs down it, and then we get going here, and it's just like, your show's over. It's like, no, the show's not over. All right, refresh.
Are we recording still?
Oh yeah, we're recording.
So this is all going to go out.
Yeah.
Kind of awkward few minutes.
Yeah. It hasn't been a few minutes now, has it?
7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 seconds. Oh no, since it went dead.
Yeah, no, it just went dead. I just watched it go dead. I'm telling you, the spooks are after us today. You
want me to continue on with the story?
Yeah. So you're at the hospital and you've got Ebola. Continue.
I'm cleared. But no, it was wheezy over a week. I missed 7 solid days of work, and I'm home and the doctor, the hospital, and it's tiring. And it's like I said, the issue is you got to be considerate of others, and there's people with great immune systems. They could never.
But to what degree? To what degree? I mean, okay, I'm going to use this as a segue. Of course, if you're sick, don't go to work. Wash your hands. All of that good stuff. Right. Don't cough on people. And if you're feverish, you are probably contagious. There you go. There's the PSA for the show. Right. Cleveland area schools cancel classes over Ebola concerns. People are freaking out. Okay, that they're going to get Ebola. We have it right here where I live, and that is people starting to freak out because of the amount of coverage. And I guess, you just have dumb people that are worried about things. It's, how long are they going to shut down school? I mean, obviously, it's going to be not months, not years. And you just came out of the hospital, and it got me thinking about MRSA. So, people criticize me for not having enough real stats in front of us. So I have a note here. It says, compared to other shit, MRSA. Okay, this is pretty crazy. In 2002, according to the CDC, take the numbers for what they are, 1.7 million people contracted MRSA and 99,000 people died. And this is 12 years ago. So 179 deaths a day is what basically happens in this country. And take the numbers for what they are, that we can directly relate to MRSA. Hospitals, VA hospitals especially, plagued with this shit. It's horrible. It's staph. It's methicillin-resistant staph, basically. And it's hard to kill. It kills upwards. This is pretty amazing to me. 33,000 people annually in the UK. And it's something that people... we don't freak out about it. When you go to the hospital, you're more likely to contract MRSA than you ever will Ebola. So that's a real concern. So it's not to say that, Ebola isn't a concern. It's not something that we should highly monitor, but there's so many other really dangerous things that are happening. I mean, the World Health Organization is saying that there might be 10,000 cases per week in December. So let's say it's 120,000. It's only slightly higher, even if it's a mass pandemic where the government doesn't do anything and we're not sending troops to Africa, wink, wink, all of the rest of it. I mean, so when you start, looking at that and just kind of, put it in perspective, you realize it's a lot of fear, it's a lot of hype, and people are totally buying into it. And one thing I will say before we go on, what amazes me is that after the anthrax scares, after, the Department of Homeland Security and other agencies under the government spending trillions of dollars, hospitals don't have a hazmat suit. They don't have goggles. They don't have a rain slicker or any other thing. I mean, you start looking at these hobpod pictures of, medical staff wearing all sorts of contraptions. It baffles me. I don't even know what to think about it, Charlie McGrath. I mean, what are your thoughts on Ebola, the economic impact, the fear, the psyop, all of the other angles that you may be seeing with it?
Well, that's a great question, and because I follow that daily, just as everybody else does, and you're having technical issues, and I am too. My other laptop where I have all my news stories just crashed on me, so I'm going to try to restart that. But
man,
yeah, it's technical glitch night.
Telling you, the NSA is after us.
It's Ebola virus in our computers. It's the mortality rate of it's, I think what's terrifying, right? We've talked about that before, but if you look at it from a perspective of the ultimate terror, government terror weapon, it is it. I mean, it's 9/11 on frickin' steroids. We have, 3 people in the country right now with Ebola?
Yeah, maybe. Let's go crazy and say there's 100 people now infected with Ebola, and they're all going to die. They're all going to die.
Okay, if we found out in the next couple days that there was 100 people affected with Ebola in this country, it is coming to a grinding halt. 100 people could do that. 100 people. Let's say you have 3 in New York City, you have 3 in Dallas, you have 50 in LA. It's done, man. No kids are going to school. They're all staying home. You're going to have how many people are just not going to leave their house because of this? The fear that's being generated over this. It would be that bad. I really think that if you're conspiratorial and you're looking at this as a way that government is consolidating power, it's a pretty easy argument to make. I mean, we had 9/11, right? And we got the freedom destroying laws out of that. We had 2008. We had the consolidation of the financial industry and power out of that. If we wanted to have some kind of global effort to force in global governance, man, oh man, this thing's perfect for that, because it's generating fear unlike anything that I've ever seen when you have 3 people that have it. 3 people. But every time somebody gets it, it's, oh my God, they were in contact with blah, 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 blah. And I hope I'm right. And this is just nothing your argument is valid, that this is nothing. I mean, this is just going to be, there's probably going to be some people that die from it. There's going to be people infected with it who are cured from it. We're going to figure out a cure for it or how to isolate it, and that'll be the end of it. If we compare it to the Spanish flu, 20 million people die from that globally.
And that's because also the tainted vaccines that now admittedly were, helping propagate the Spanish flu.
Right. Well, my point is it a global killer? I mean, is it the end of the world as we know it?
No. I mean, this is the thing. Even in places that have almost no sanitation, no resources, completely broke. Now more broke in West Africa. You might have, I don't know, let's say 120,000 people that contract it and die from it, because many people don't die from it, and it it runs its course. It's not a new thing, but let's say 120,000 people. It's nothing compared to starvation. It's nothing compared to all the other things that plague our humanity, our species. There's plenty of other things to freak out about, and you shouldn't freak out about those either. And
so, would it be? I mean, let's say, like you said, 100 people get it, and it shuts down. It shuts down the country, because if we don't, I mean, that sounds crazy, right? But look at the hysteria now. Look at the hysteria.
It's already happening. I mean, the Ebola effect has arrived. Here's an article. Half of Americans will avoid international air travel out of Ebola fears. Now, they might be people that go to blacklistednews.com and read it and start looking into, this is what freaks me out. The virus transmitting yellow fever mosquitoes discovered in LA. I hate mosquitoes. I'm almost with Bill Gates and all the other creepy people that are genetically modifying mosquitoes to kill other mosquitoes, or to make them inert, to sterilize them. I'm almost with them, but not there. Just, and that's purely out of convenience. And all of our Floridian listeners and coastal outliers out there, and others in the jungle that listen to the Doomcast probably can, understand how, horrible mosquitoes are. I mean, those things freak me out, and they're just so prevalent. They're so bad right now here. You can't really go outside and enjoy yourself without, some kind of huge plan to. People have spraying systems, all sorts of stuff, and I'm crying up a river because the things that you have to do in places like Florida, in South America, for bugs. It's 1,000 times worse. But the reality is that you're so much more likely to be killed by a police officer. You're so much more likely to be killed in a traffic accident. You're so much more likely to be killed in so many other ways. 3 people in how many people are in America?
315 million,
15 million, 20 million, whatever. So anyway, yeah, people, and it gets my wife, the intro virus D68 that's going around. We talked about that, I think, briefly last Doomcast 2 weeks ago. I can't believe it.
Sorry.
Yeah, so they can't really tell you how many people have died because there's no way to really tell. And I was reading this Vice article that was headlined and grabbed my attention. Why actually is in vitro or introviro D68. Why are people freaking out about it? And basically breaks down that maybe so far they could say this year that there are 68 deaths from this. But the CDC claims that flu cases in the U.S. cause 35,000 to 50,000 deaths a year. I mean, It's a staggering number. It's half of what the full-blown pandemic in Africa would be. And everybody's saying, well, we just got to, we have Connecticut
People go to
declaring
work with the flu.
Well, okay, Connecticut's declared a state of emergency. Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, has put together some executive order putting together a health security team. And, he's a huge big pharma crony. But just the grandstanding, the reaction that people are having to it, and, the media propagating it is just... It blows me away. The alternative media is just as bad. All of you out there, shame on you. I've only followed the story because I think it's a complete psyop. Not that this is all the government's doing. Although I don't throw that out the window. I mean, did it come from Fort Detrick? I wouldn't doubt it. But it becomes this. It's becoming an economic tool, or because you have people that are going to. I mean, the airlines are going to be number one. They're
already feeling it.
They're already feeling it, but now your TSA agent's going to be not only talking to you. He's going to be taking your temperature, giving you a quiz, all of this stuff, and it really almost serves no purpose. The CDC has proven itself to be at best incompetent. I think that the one of the nurses that flew, or the Dallas nurse. The big story of the day was that she had called the CDC, somebody there, and they said, yeah, it's okay, fly, sure, yeah, no problem. And people are like, oh my God, we need a global quarantine. We need to shut the economy down. We need to loan these people more money so they can buy the next super vaccine.
Well,
it's a joke.
Yeah, and how do you not say that? I mean, what do you got? Cleveland, Ohio, they're shutting down schools because this nurse flew on a plane, and some people on that plane worked at those schools.
There's probably MRSA in their the boys' PE rooms and the locker rooms. Well, there's
when does it stop though? I mean, that's why I say that it is so the fear is so contagious. And the reaction that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, man, Doug, it's crazy. I really, 2 weeks ago when we did last Doomcast, there was a level of fear, but look how much the fear virus has spread over the last couple of weeks.
The doom has set in.
The doom virus is completely taking over. And I mean, what would it be if there was 100 people in this country that had it? And with 3, you have schools closing down, you have people refusing to go to work, you have hazmat suit sales soaring through the roof. What would it be if it really was, a population area that like Dallas? I mean, if 50 people in Dallas had it, it would just shut Dallas down. That'd be it.
I remember people were freaked out a few months ago when the measles broke out in New York City. And that's somewhere where you could see something that's very contagious, highly transmittable, that could take flight. There's people like you and I that, I mean, I don't know when the last time I got an MMR vaccine was, when I was 3, and I'm sure it's mutated plenty of times. And if I came in contact with somebody who had measles, I would probably contract it. I mean, it's just, because we saw plenty of people that were vaccinated during that. Actually, the person that started it was vaccinated. And I get into this with family and such because, I'm a parent with a vaccine-aged child. But, the reality was that, there was 90 kids, and they're like, oh, my God, measles are making a comeback. And then the story died, and so did the measles. So it's not to say that, I don't know. I mean, is it the only thing that I think a lot of people are wondering about, and there's a lot of speculation about, is, has this become airborne? Is this something else? Is this really Ebola? And if it is Ebola, then has it mutated? Does it have something that allows it to be more transmittable? I don't know,
Well,
but
they're saying, at first it was bodily fluid contact, and with that came...
They're still saying that. It's so hard to contract, but how do the healthcare workers that have, I don't know, masks and goggles get this?
I don't know. I mean, I know that these people
are they
have
getting
Ebola.
It? Everybody thinks it's crisis actors on Reddit. It's making me sick. Not everything is a crisis actor, you people.
Well, here's the deal. If it's airborne, then it's going to be a bigger deal, right? I mean, it isn't going to... The masks,
it might be as bad as the seasonal flu. Oh, my God. Yeah. You think people would be more excited about the price of oil? Hey, have you seen those gas prices? I don't know if you're impressed with them, Charlie McGrath, but...
Are we moving off Ebola? Because
I don't know. You want to talk more about it?
Well, I'm trying to get a word in. Is my mic off?
No.
Oh,
I thought we were just
sure?
talking. I thought we were having a conversation over here.
You asked a question about has it become airborne, or how do these people get it?
Oh, I'm just saying we don't know.
Or is it even Ebola? Is it
Right.
something else that is mutated? Because viruses mutate every time they go from one person to the next. Okay, there's an oh my God moment, right? If suddenly in this hospital in Dallas, if 100 people in there have it, then okay, and then 50% of them keel over and die, then you got yourself the makings of a crisis, of something that is probably worth it's probably worth freaking out over. Do you know what I mean? But as it stands now, 3 people in the country, the hysteria that's going on around it, the absolute inability of the CDC to get their act together, the lack of any kind of equipment in this hospital, like you said, where is all this money that's gone into these hospitals? And they don't have, they're putting on welding masks so they can to have their face shield. It's a sad situation to show you what would happen in a real pandemic, something that was zombie apocalypse type pandemic. It would be game over, because there is no stopping it. There's no stopping people from being people. And if you need an example of that, if she's not a crisis actor, a nurse that's taking care of the guy who lied to come here, who had Ebola, and she has a fever, yet knowingly climbs onto an airplane to go bridal dress shopping, and then climbs on another airplane, goes back home with a fever, knowing she's sick, knowing she just had contact with somebody who had Ebola. So people are going to be people. If there is some true type of pandemic, if this is turned into one, some kind of airborne killer, human nature is going to doom us. CDC regulation is not going to save us. FEMA's preparation for an outbreak isn't going to save us.
Oh, absolutely not. But they're going to sell it as, the next thing that they need to. Well, I mean, the executive order that Obama has resurrected, I guess, from
the
Bush.
guards?
Well, from Bush, he had basically put together an executive order to be able to detain anybody during the SARS epidemic, or whatever it became, the SARS story. The
SARS outbreak, the 21-day lockup mandatory.
Yes, the contagion. Yeah. Whatever. But so yeah, they can basically, if a cop or anybody in the federal government that's been deputized under the Department of Homeland Security suspects you of having a fever, can basically just put you in a black van and take you somewhere to a hospital, or I don't know where they may take you, but they have the power to detain. And that's what I see is that, well, we need more and more power to shut down the airlines, all of these private industries. We need more integration. We need more electronic health records. We need more surveillance. And now they're calling it biosurveillance. I love this, Orwellian term that it's, somehow biological to surveil you, or that, they can...
it's all the greater good.
It's a medical surveillance system. So it's for my good. Oh, this is just making sure that, if I get a slight fever, that you're going to take care of me and love me and stuff.
Yeah. Well, they're going to take care of us all. That it's like I said earlier, you got 9/11, you got the banking crisis, and now we're going to have the next big crisis. And I don't know if this is it, but it certainly looks like it could be, or something along these lines.
Oh, yeah. It is a crisis. It's already a crisis. People are shutting down schools and freaking out all over the place. You don't even have to have a crisis. Just the potential of a crisis or the perception of a crisis is effective. This is a case in point. It's
what we've talked about before. What I've talked about before. It isn't the event. It's the fear that is generated from it. So fear is the virus, and fear is used in every sector. It doesn't matter if we're talking government or financial, or if it's biological. It's fear. And if you get the fear, you get your way. You can do whatever you want as long as the fear is there. So the fear virus, the fear virus is truly the global plague. And it ain't stopping anytime soon because it feeds upon itself. We're led down a path of fear. We got to be afraid of terrorists. We got to be afraid of financial calamity. We got to be afraid of slowing growth on the global economy. We got to be afraid of the bugs coming out of the jungle in Africa. We got to give more and more of our power and our control and our destiny over to fewer people because they can take care of us. And it's the path that's gaining momentum, Doug Owen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, these people are so incompetent. We need more government. That's all I hear. Everybody's saying, well, it's like ISIS. There is no opposition party to arming, quote unquote, moderate rebels or anything else that is taking place and that was off the table just a year ago. And, I've been watching this little, quagmire, this little geopolitical event take shape, and you have the Turks bombing Kurds, and we're arming the Kurds, and Turkey is part of NATO, so we vow to protect their sovereignty, their security. So you have all of these really interesting and opposing forces that are being. And the CIA this week put out a post saying that they know that arming moderate, and I hate to use the term, but moderate Syrian rebels and others is not effective. It doesn't work. It is counterintuitive. It is counterproductive.
It works for ISIS.
The few times that it has been effective, like in Afghanistan to out the Russians back in the 70s, the blowback from that, of course, the creation of Al-Qaeda, the radicalization of Islam and all the rest. The blowback has been so, it's been, exponential, tenfold, over and over and over. These consequences from decisions that, people like Zbigniew Brzezinski and Henry Kissinger made, 40 years ago are still plaguing us to the tune of $7 trillion for all of you war hawk budget deficit folks. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you vote for the Democrat or the Republican. They're all pro-war. This is the next big thing. So it's discouraging to me, but it's interesting to see new players. Iran's back on the table, trying to work with Turkey, finding all these people. And once again, all of you Kurds, I think you're going to get screwed, and the government will probably let the
Turks.
Yeah, the Turks murder
and Iranians.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
It is an absolute. It's the planet heaving. Doesn't it feel that way, Doug? It doesn't matter what corner you look at. There's some calamity or crisis that's going on. ISIS is out of the headlines now only because Ebola is in there. And but they're still marching there. They're still El Nasra. They're still the rebels that we were trying to help in Syria a few years ago. Now we're just gonna do it again and create more problems in that region. But it's a self-feeding monster that is very profitable for some. And I don't know that there's any will to get a control over this area. I think having it in turmoil is exactly the plan, and it's working beautifully. But it's 1991. I mean, that's when we first went into the Gulf, and we're far worse condition there now, and the people are in far worse condition there now by far than 1991. So yeah,
by just about every metric you can imagine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't think of one that's better. Maybe there's some warlords who are better off.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of people that are better off, but not the general population. Not the people that
they're third world now. They're third world
that we were liberating. The people that were liberated are not doing better.
Absolutely not.
No.
All right, I want to talk about one story and see and ask you what the hell is going on in your state of Texas.
Okay.
I mean, that's where American Ebola started, right there in your state.
Everything's Texas, bigger in Texas, even Ebola.
Everything's bigger, yeah.
Yes.
Texas, who love it, like it or not, is it's the most economic prosperous state in the union.
Thanks to fracking and oil. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Whatever the reason is, the case is that. So, but also you are the home of Ebola, where the outbreak began.
Right.
The reason the Ohio school shut down is because of Texas. What happened there, and now you have
trend-setting.
You have Houston elect a mayor who happens to be a lesbian, who is now trying to go force these churches to turn over their sermons to edit out anything negative that's said about the gay and lesbian community, anything that's harsh and not intolerant. And
I think they want to go after their tax exempt status,
right? They want to, they want to leverage the power that is the tax exempt status, which is funny because when you think about it, you're leveraging somebody with their own money. We're going to take your money, not let you keep it, if you don't capitulate. Now it seems like she's running into some roadblocks.
Yeah, I think they nixed the plan. They said, it's a little controversial and didn't want to bring the heat, but. Yeah, it's a pet peeve. She's already pushed for transgendered bathrooms and all sorts of ridiculous stuff that I think is indicative of what we have today, and that is just a lot of people that want to be offended and want everybody to curtail to them, and they want special privileges for being whatever it is. I mean, if you're a minority, a female, all the things that you see, all those memes, and I know it's easy to say that because you're a white male, Doug Owen. That's true. But the reality is that when you create a government that is somehow trying to dictate morality and try to make people equal, and I understand the intent. When you try to handicap some people, you give, I don't know, like preferential government contracts to historically underused businesses, minority and female owned. People just get they put the business in their wife's name or something else like that. But you create this huge bureaucracy that is almost just, it's so convoluted, so hard to navigate that it doesn't really serve or help anyone. And that's what you have happening here. I think that's just one micro example of something that's much larger, and that is trying to give people special rights for being gay or being whatever it is, whatever kind of sexuality you identify to, and having the whole world curtail what their thoughts and opinions to be tolerant of yours. I saw this one. This is a perfect example that dovetails with it, where there was some class curriculum. I don't remember what state it was, but basically they were discouraging teachers from using gender-specific identification. Like instead of saying, "Good morning, boys and girls," because you're identifying boys and identifying girls, there might be transgendered or some other identification that happens, and those people would feel wrong. And that just, I think that once you just go so far as to make things so confusing that you can't navigate, even a conversation, I don't even know if they put these agendas forward. I don't even think they would be happy with them ultimately, because it doesn't really serve any purpose. So it's just it feels good. It feels like we're being better and that we're growing, but really we're not. We're just creating a society where we have everybody's handicapped. Okay, if you're black and you're a man, you have a handicap. Now, if you're a black woman, you go through all, then you can get to the very, very, very front of the line, or whatever it may be. So I don't know. I think that's it's pretty ridiculous, but it shows you, even in a place like Houston, Texas, that you would think would be oil, Halliburton Central,
Red State Central,
that people like this can get elected. Which scares the hell out of me. I mean, unfortunately, the people that are voting are stupid.
Well, I think what was interesting about it, and I was talking with Eric Lovely about this earlier tonight, is she was shut down. Basically, it seems like because the federal government says that she doesn't have that kind of power. Only they have that kind of power, and just the fact that power is assumed to be there, right? That they could come in and tell a 501c3 that to dictate the speech that they can use and can't use is scary in and of itself, because it doesn't just affect churches. It says a lot of other organizations that fall into that category, and it's like I said, it's leveraging people's own money against them in order to potentially facilitate social engineering.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, shame on the churches for trying to, go into this tax exempt status to save them money and try to not have to, pay anything. It's really out of their own greed that they've now made this, pact with the federal government. And, if you want to be tax exempt and you want to get all of the bennies of being some government recognized entity, sorry, you're going to have to move with the times, because the government is going after not just conservatives, not just Loris Lerner and others, but the IRS is being used as a weapon to silence political dissent. So
that was my point. I mean, you have this weapon out there.
But that's only because people they don't want to pay their taxes. They want to get free money. They want to be exempt from it. And I want to be exempt from it too. But you know what? The reason that we don't run a non-profit and give ourselves salaries and try to become an NPR or some public broadcasting is because you and I like to be completely open, honest, candid. And you don't want to be to the behest of the government. You don't want to have to steer away from political, topics, current issues. You don't have to veer away from those things. So,
and we do not, Doug Owen.
We do not. So, sorry, churches, if you don't want to. I mean, I don't know what she's going to do with it, or if she's going to be able to. At some point, it's probably going to be a hate crime. I mean, this is how far it goes. You're not allowed to have your opinion, and it doesn't matter if your opinion's wrong. This is what I'm saying to all of you liberal people. Just because you believe that people are all equal and that Christians, because they think that what you're doing is a sin, is intolerable. You have to be tolerant of other people's beliefs. I'm tolerant of people believing that they're boys and girls, and having sex with all sorts of different people, and even trying to entitle themselves to all sorts of different benefits. I'm fine with that. That's your right to do that, but I have an opinion, and I have a right to my opinion. And I mean, it's one of the few things that I think, we're allowed in this world is a right to our opinion. So if you don't like my opinion, that's okay. We talk about it. I mean, my opinions change, based on, factual evidence provided to me, or just, things that I, come across. I mean, it's not that I don't think people are less equal because they choose, to have sex with, with the same sex or other sex, or identify themselves
as a whatever.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, you're a human being. You have certain,
right.
alienated rights.
That's a libertarian point of view. I mean, you're basically stating the libertarian philosophy.
You have the right to be a human. I don't know how you have the right to water. People get upset about that. They're like, "What do you mean? You don't think that that's a universal human right?" I don't know how it can be, because if you're in a desert, if it's your universal human right to have water, then what is some bureaucracy supposed to pop out of nowhere and come make a well for you? Is it part of your destiny to make that happen? Are you expecting somebody to pump water? I mean, it's like in Detroit, people aren't paying their water bills because they're broke. I understand. I can empathize. I've been broke. I've lived in the ghetto in Norfolk, Virginia. I've lived in bad places. I understand. But, the UN saying, well, this is a travesty. They can't cut off people's water. Well, I can't just stop paying my water bill. Do I have a right to water? And if we do have a right to water, then, why the hell am I paying my water bill? Why are we doing any of these things that we're doing?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's a question of, is it a humane thing to do? I mean, if these people
nobody's going to stop you from going to Lake Michigan and sticking your head in there.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay, well,
you can get your
I don't know what to argue with you on this one, but
you see what I'm saying is that people want these rights that are just arbitrary. They're impossible to enforce or to even give to people, and they believe those things can somehow be rights. And it's just like, oh my God, we got to get the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in front of you. Okay, this is Constitution 101.
I agree. I mean, everything can't be a right. The whim of the day can't just be turned into a right. But I think as a society, though, and in times past, we've had charities that have taken in people who were, broke, destitute, didn't have food, didn't have water, and these people were taken care of. They didn't die in the streets. And now we have to give, and everybody's got to have the best medical care, the best, food, the best education, and it has to be paid for by the ever dwindling tax base, or stealing from the future and just borrowing money to do this. So everybody's got their hand up and out, and it's an impossible thing to pay for. I do believe that as a humanitarian, if somebody's in the desert and they're sitting out there crying for their water, I'd say, get out of the damn desert. But I would, if I had a bottle of water, I'd give it to them.
It's incumbent upon you to take certain things into your own hands in this world, and it's like gay marriage. The only thing that really divides everybody, I think, at the end of the day, is that you need the government to determine that for insurance and other legal issues. That before the government was involved in it, you could be a man and a man and have the government or your pastor, somebody. Or you yourself could just deem yourself married. You didn't have to have some
government
entity that told you that this is okay. And the only reason that you need that is because the legal system and the insurance system that we have today is it is completely, I think, racist itself. And that's the deal. I mean, if you're a black guy living in Compton, you're going to pay more for a life insurance policy than a white guy in nowhere, Kansas. Yeah. That's the truth. It's not. You can call it profiling, you can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that make that determination. You would think that you would give the other guy a break. You would think that you would people that are less likely to pay would pay less interest rates. That because that they're not going to pay, that they probably can't pay. So charging them 50% interest is, it might be counterproductive. Counterintuitive to you getting paid off. If the government wasn't there to bail you out, if you hadn't already made a side bet with AIG against it because you knew it was subprime, blah 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 blah, all the other things that distort, the natural law and real things happening.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. What about U.S. tanks arriving in Latvia to ward off the perceived Russian threat? That story.
It makes the people in Latvia feel good. It makes them feel like
once, and it's a good thing. It shows that story hasn't went away. I mean, it's layered down there now quite a ways. I mean,
the Poles want nuclear weapons. Okay, that's what they want. We need nuclear weapons, of course. I mean, it's It's all the things that, so many of these people that, they see an opportunity, a huge militarization of Europe. And that's what Europe hasn't had in the last 10 years. I mean, they haven't had military integration. They haven't had a great foe. And I think it's kind of falling on its face, but it's going to justify needing more money from the U.S. military-industrial complex, more missiles, more everything that you need to address the Russian threat. And I was reading some of Putin's latest comments about the U.S. and their strategy to isolate Russia. I think, interestingly enough, I mean, I don't know if you've been keeping up because you've been in and out of
in and out of love,
and consciousness and all of that. That oil prices are really low, and the Saudis have just miraculously, after a little secret rendezvous with John Kerry, decided to drop those barrels of oil. I have to eat crow. Where's my crow sound effect? I never thought that gas would ever go back under maybe $100 a barrel.
Yeah.
I thought that was just, and I professed that. I'm like, it's never ever going to go under $100 a barrel. Well, I guess it's interesting to see who's being impacted by this. Case in point, Venezuela, completely dependent on oil. I was looking at the Wall Street Journal, and it shows which countries go into complete recession. And I guess some countries like the United States and others can just print money out of thin air, but for Venezuela, they can do the same, I guess.
It could be used as a political tool to lower
it's hurting them. Out. It could push them over the edge. Same thing for Russia. It seems like it's going to be. I don't know if it's advantageous though, really, to do that. I mean, is it strengthening the dollar? The dollar's allegedly at an all-time high, although we're starting to see a lot of. It's taking every day. It's taking a big bang. Here's one. UK sells bonds in China's currency, adding pressure to the dollar. I mean, the UK, come on. I mean, they're even selling out the euro. I mean, that's just how underhanded and.
I think it shows that. Look at the last couple of weeks of how the global economic situation is being revealed as a complete and utter disaster, and it's being held together by the creation of more and more debt. I mean, I think it's so tenuous that anything like the dropping of the dollar, the dropping of energy prices, you see Greece now that's back in full blown chaos economically. I can't remember the name of the video that we played a couple weeks ago. The guy who predicted by December it was all coming apart. I don't know if that prediction is going to be true. And he was talking mainly about gold was going to be $5,000 and silver was going to be $250.
It's the lowest price ever. It's the lowest price in a long time. And it always tempts me. I'm always like, man, can it go any lower? God, these money masters, the high priests of central banking, have been able to do a pretty good deal here. I mean, they're really misogyning it. Now they're putting, prostitution, drugs into the GDP in countries like France and others in Europe. We're having to legalize pot just to keep the states afloat, and the fact that we're now the largest exporter of oil, pretty impressive, America, is because we have just fracked this country into
pieces.
Into pieces.
Yeah.
Who knows how much radioactive water we'll be drinking?
That was Saudi's reason for going and lowering,
to compete
OPEC
allegedly.
Nations. Yeah.
So I mean, this is gonna. I mean, who's gonna lose in this deal? I mean, because I'm trying to find reasons to be excited about why low energy prices are going to shut down all of this green bullshit that is not leading us anywhere productive, and B, who's going to ultimately profit from low gas prices? Because I would think that the Saudis would just pump more. Lower it per barrel, but just put more on the market. You're always going to be tempted to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. They're lowering their prices so they stay relevant and can keep selling. And I think the big energy companies.
So you're thinking that they're doing this for the U.S. So obviously the U.S. has an interest. Okay. So here's the question: who's tapping OPEC? Okay, why are they doing this?
I think the big energy companies are seeing that the Middle East is not going to continue to be this vast resource of easy to get to, easy refinable oil. And they also see that some of the potential future foes, Russia and China, namely, are gaining more sway in this region of the world. I think we're being positioned to see North America, and it's happening right now, to be the number one energy producer on this planet. And, if that occurs, the relevance of the powers that be remains in force for how many more years, for how many more decades? If North America becomes the world's predominant energy producer, then that secures the power, because it's no longer going to be just the fictitious fantasy dollar that's printed out of thin air that has global respect. When that comes crashing down, if we're still the global energy resource, then the power still remains. We've massaged the energy resources out of lots of places in the world while maintaining our number one status through our military and through our fiat currency. That is starting to show cracks, as you just talked about the UK selling off their bonds in yuan. If that comes crashing down, but we still are sitting on this mountain of energy, we still have the military. We are still relevant. It still puts us in the driver's seat. I mean, I see this position, this jockeying to have this world order, this new world order that is the money masters of the old world order, still remain in force. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about at the beginning of the show, or pre-show, that Lockheed Martin now has this, and I'm sure they've had this for a long time. This came from Skunk Works, but they're saying that they will be able to market and have a full-scale new fusion reactor that can change humanity in just 10 years. They've proven this cold fusion works. And interestingly enough, there's another release of a cold fusion generated reactor and other breeder reactors that have been designed that actually they use more fissile material than they consume more fissile material than they produce. So basically, to create energy, they eat all of the energy and they deplete it before it consumes. It doesn't have like byproducts like uranium reactors and some of the other things like Fukushima that we have today. But it's really interesting because I think at some point the oil gig is up. And the geopolitical tensions, like you mentioned, I mean, at some point, it costs too much to get that oil. It's just not worth all of the other headaches, and it might not be part of a 10-year or 20-year plan that's feasible for, the Fortune 500s and the others that, that have to be part of, this rebuilding process. I mean, when you look at what we're doing in the Middle East, you have to have the financial backing and the integration economically to make any of these contracts stick. Right. So and to support OPEC and the like. So it's interesting because I know that trying to isolate Russia and to become the new conduit of energy, gas and a gas conduit to Europe is something that it seems like the U.S. is trying to do, trying to be that bringing Chevron to Ukraine, bringing all of these companies to Europe and to frack the F out of it, to isolate Russia. It's kind of part of that whole plan. Just looking at who's there and who's benefiting and who's buying Victoria Nuland and her family lunch. Really, at the end of the day. But things are changing. I think that, some of these other technologies are kind of, changing it. And the old power, like you mentioned, wants to be the new power. And they want to remain the power. And so,
I think anything's on the table for that power to remain, including a global war. And I don't know if that's the end goal or if they want to get us there by other terrorist means, like, a global Ebola scare or a 9/11 or a financial crisis, the next big financial crisis. But I think anything is possible in the future. And Doug, you're right. I mean, do you feel this I feel this acceleration, not exhilaration, acceleration of crisis piled on top of crisis. I mean, it was a few years ago. You would take a crisis, and you would have a week, maybe two, before the next one came along, and then you talked about that for a little while.
Right.
But now it's just pile on the crisis. It's like a stack of baloney.
It used to be the runaway bride. It used to be, Michael Jackson. Who's he touching? But right. It was pretty slow. I mean, there just weren't that many things happening.
There was always, even since 2008 till now, there's always been some crisis event for alt media to talk about.
Right.
And you're right. There was periods of time in there. Usually, in the nice times of summer, people would chill out, and you would lose a crisis to talk about. So you'd drag along you'd drag along for a week or two. But now, and the last year or so, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it just seems it's a pile on the crisis, one after another, and they don't stay in the media long before the next one's piled on top of it.
Well,
so,
yeah, I mean,
I see that as an acceleration.
I do too. I think that I don't know. I mean, also you have the the crisis breeding ratings, breeding relevance, getting people on board, and part of, I think, the overall. It's definitely a political tool to keep people, basically accepting just about anything. If you have enough crises and enough reasons to give up your liberty, and, the Ebola is a case in point where we have to give the government all sorts of authority over all sorts of, new, I mean, everything. I mean, basically they can quarantine you, take your right to travel away from you under, the most specious of circumstances. But every and it seems like every time the solution is just more government, more taxes, more things leading to either financial meltdown or just into these just horrible quagmires. I mean, right. We don't even talk about the deficit anymore. Nobody even talks about the debt ceiling. I don't even think anybody cares, because it's just it's not a story that matters at the moment. And it might be, and here's the thing, it cycles. The next debt ceiling might, if things are slow and they don't have Ebola and they don't have.
I don't think so. I think that these crises that like the debt ceiling or the cap and voting on the cap and shutting down the government. I mean, I think look what
looting the treasury. Done.
What it's done is created a representativeless government. One crisis lead to another crisis. Then you end up having a Congress that has the lowest approval rating ever. They can't pass a budget for who knows how many years. It's basically run on executive order and government agencies that have no elected officials running it at the heads of it, and the oversight of them is lost in the daily abyss that is government. So we have Congress, and we're going to all go vote for our favorite senator or House or representative here in the next few weeks. But in reality, you're voting for nothing, because they're not going to do anything. They're divided as they've ever been. They have they're least effective as they've ever been, and so we rely on these high placed functionaries that run it all. And so, I mean, we have the illusion of representative government, but it's not there. We have executive orders and branches such as the IRS or such as the CDC or such as the EPA that are running the country. Government, I mean, Congress isn't running it. They're sitting there squabbling amongst themselves, and they've done a bang-up job of turning the people of this country into the same kind of bunch of chickens out in the field pecking at each other. We're all fighting amongst ourselves, putting our hands out for we have to have a guaranteed right of water. We have to have a guaranteed right of this. We have to be able to have transgender bathrooms. We have to, worry about our little clique. And in the big picture, we've glossed control. And it behooves the powers that be that is in control to keep this illusion going and keep the bread coming to the circus so it doesn't all come collapsing down. But at the end of the day, I do think it's going to come all collapsing down. And that'll probably be by design, because we'll have too many even high-placed bureaucrats like Obama, like the leaders of these other countries that are claiming power and authority. We got to consolidate that even further. So why not let's just put the banking cartel, a global financial governance, or a global energy governance in charge of the planet's resources. And the people probably, if their TV stays on and the beer stays cold, they'll probably just go along with it.
Well, that's the resolve of the American people. That's one of the things that I think that, that we can appreciate, that people, that they continue, and I think that means that humanity will always continue. I mean, if you look at really bad places on planet Earth with really bad governments, people still are there and are fighting them and bringing more accountability. And I think that we can have a much broader discussion. So there's a lot of positive things that are happening as well. The only thing that is different is now the illusion that the American people are in control is starting to, I think, hit a lot of people in the mouth. And
I think you're right.
That's and the reaction when you realize where you're at, it varies. Some people get upset and they want to do something about it. Some people realize that this is how the systems of governance have worked for forever, really, since agrarian society began, and then you start to understand what really it is to be free, and what we're against today. That's where we're at, my friends. There's no doubt about it. So crises by design, by opportunity, by so many. I mean, I tend to think that these crises are always a great opportunity, but I don't know how many of them are.
Is it crises or crises? Am I saying it wrong?
I always say crises. I've heard it. Crises just sounds stupid.
It does sound stupid. I'm going to start saying multiple crisis situations.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Crises is correct. It's like geese.
Geese is geeses. Doug Owen, we made it through 62. And you know what? I want to thank everybody for being patient for my escapades last week. I want to thank Craig. And you know what? I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if I've had any donations since the last deal. So I'm going to have to save it for 63, unless you have somebody you want to talk about. Yeah, we did.
We had some, but we'll save it. We'll save them for next week and give everybody a double credit.
Yeah, and we'll start 63 out with that. So if you gave, be patient. You will be your initials will be heard and your city will be heard. I want to thank Craig for his great work. And do you have anything else you want to add, or do you want me to wrap it up?
No, man. I think we're good. We're going to do it again, and sometimes it gets delayed. Sometimes we can't do it each and every week, but we really do try. And of course, we do, unless Charlie's in the hospital or something horrible. So,
there's going to be less of that. There's going to be less of that. I promise. My name's Charlie McGrath. My website's wideawakenews.com. My co-founder and friend is Doug Owen, blacklistednews.com. You can contact me at info@wideawakenews.com. Doug at blacklistednews.com. The website is Doomcast.com. Doug, anything else you want to add?
Nope. Take care, everybody.
Right on. Have a good night. Peace out, y'all.